Hello, everybody. I'm here with my dad, Dr. Chip ABRAHAMSEN, and I want to plug that we are starting a show we're going to launch first on locals. So you should go to my locals community, alisonmorrow.locals.com. We're going to talk about health-related stuff like what you're going to hear today over there, and we hope you join us. So, Dad, the thing I want to throw your way, because you went to medical school, I don't want to date you, but a while ago, just say a while ago,
19,
and
1980, I graduated.
1 year before I was born. So I guess I was the celebration. Anyway, when we watch this video that's going around right now, and I should add that this is coming from the Daily Mail. It says woke pledge replaces Hippocratic oath, and we're going to watch it so people can actually hear it for themselves. I will just start out by saying, the thing that I guess I've learned about the last few years in the healthcare system and medical students is that it seems like what you're about to hear in this, like for instance, honoring all indigenous ways of healing. Like I would actually like to do to have more access, like have my doctors more privy to knowledge about natural like treatments and for for stuff like I have a naturopathic doctor and a medical doctor because I don't trust that my medical doctor really knows anything about like indigenous ways of healing or any kind of healing other than pharmaceuticals. So it just seems like a lot of lip service. Maybe this will be the one class. This is the class of 2026 at the University of Minnesota. Maybe this will be the one class that turns it around or something. I'm not really sure, but let's watch this.
Probably not. Just a quick comment, because
Yeah.
I did a video on Howard Zinn just recently on my channel. This is not about indigenous people. It is about destroying the Hippocratic Oath and traditional medicine. Just like Indigenous Peoples Day is not about indigenous people. It's about destroying Columbus Day.
Okay, let's watch.
With gratitude, we, the students of the University of Minnesota Twin Cities Medical School class of 2026, stand here today among our friends, families, peers, mentors, and communities who have supported us in reaching this milestone. Our institution is located on Dakota land. Today, many indigenous people throughout the state, including Dakota and Ojibwe, call the Twin Cities home. We also recognize this acknowledgement is not enough. We commit to uprooting the legacy and perpetuation of structural violence deeply embedded within the healthcare system. We recognize inequity.
I just want to stop at the structural violence. What do you think they're talking about if you would put them yourself in their shoes? What does that mean exactly?
I go back to a letter to the editor for the Journal American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery that I sent when they published quote unquote research from a Black female orthopedic surgeon who said that the orthopedic residencies and the orthopedic community and all hospitals were racist because one of her fellow orthopedic surgeons that she interviewed was walking down the hall of a hospital one day and somebody stopped and said there was a spill on the floor and mistook the guy for a janitor. And it just created a great opportunity for them to use racism, as their cause and try to bring down freedom of choice when people hire orthopedic surgeons or bring them into the hospital and replace it with quote unquote diversity and equity, which is just affirmative action. Choose you based on the color of your skin, not on your character and how well you did in medical school and what you have to offer to the hospital.
So I guess the thing that is like odd to me is, for instance, during COVID, actually, the sort of medical establishment kept going after how, like they would say, the Black community, for instance, doesn't want the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, or like we're having issues getting them to accept it. We just really need to do more education in the Black community. And I'd hear from Black people that would say, we don't want your medicine because you've been like experimenting on us for a long time. And,
Yes.
you know what I
they,
mean? And
yes.
we don't want, so, but it was like the medical folks who were preaching that, it's like they felt like it was their public service because they just had to educate like all this misinformation that was going around the Black community, which to me was sort of just the reverse side of actual racism, because they're saying that these people are too stupid to know what's really going on. And so they just have to push the propaganda harder. And I even think, like, I remember hearing in New York City, Black Lives Matter was protesting with the vaccine mandate protesters because they were on the same side of this issue. So it makes me wonder, that reason I asked you the question, like, what do you think they mean by that, is because, you know, do they mean like we're going to get rid of this idea that all of the like white people in their white coats in that ceremony are there to save all the Black people from their, you know, healthcare choices? Or, you know, do they really understand like what we saw over the last couple of years, which was actually what I feel like was more racist? You know, that it was like, they would say the same thing, you know, like communities of color or women, you know, like they just can't get it. So we just have to push harder. And it was like, wait, do they not see that that's kind of racist? I don't know. That's why I always think this stuff is a little weird. It doesn't seem like it's real.
I agree. I don't see it as real either. It's a political agenda. It's a spiritual battle. But they'll use the word eventually white supremacy. And that's why you know, there is a structure that we have to take down, that we have to destroy in this country, in the United States. And it's spreading to medical schools now. I'm amazed.
Okay, let's keep watching.
Equities built by past and present traumas rooted in white supremacy, colonialism, the gender binary, ableism, and all forms of oppression. As we enter this profession with opportunity for growth, we commit to promoting a culture of anti-racism, listening and amplifying voices for positive change. We pledge to honor all indigenous ways of healing that have been historically marginalized by Western medicine.
Okay, I really want to know what that means. I mean, indigenous ways of healing that have been, you know, marginalized by Western ways of healing.
Sure.
Does that mean, you know, when I had to fight for two days to have a natural birth, because, you know, to my doctor's credit, you know, he and I worked together to have, you know, Jack naturally, but he was nervous because his training is like induce, you know? So I don't know. I just find that to be so, like, did they include all this stuff? And interesting, in the chat says they do not want pharmakia. The evil use of pharmakia is the desire to control other via chemicals or enchanted items. So it's like, to me, I kind of wonder if, I don't know, man. The whole thing just seems weird, because we all know that the way the healthcare system, like I said, could they be the one class that's getting it? Maybe, but it seems like it's a bunch of lip service. And you wanted to talk about pharmakia too, so I figured I'd stop there and bring that up, because it just seems actually like the opposite. It's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors.
It is. It's total smoke and mirrors. It's no different from Abolish Columbus Day. They just renamed it Indigenous Peoples Day, or try to rename it Indigenous Peoples Day, as a smokescreen. If they really cared about indigenous people, they would build a statue next to Columbus with the indigenous people. But instead, they've done nothing to build up the indigenous people. It is a smokescreen to me, 100%. Big Pharma has been behind education in medical schools for decades. It was there. I didn't recognize it when I went to medical school, but our courses on pharmaceuticals, on drugs, were a big part of our training. And the Big Pharma was in there donating to medical schools. And now I'd be surprised if they're not the major donor to all the medical schools.
But
And
what does like all this seemingly like non-health related stuff have anything to do with pharmaceuticals? Like, why would the pharmaceutical industry push this stuff? Is it just to get people's attention away from the problems they've created with, you know, healthcare in the United States and elsewhere? I'm just curious. Like, what's the point?
Well, it's interesting because I'm most of the way through Alex Jones's book, The Great Reset, and he quotes people like Harari and Klaus Schwab, and this is right out of their books. You have to have a smokescreen. You have to make, you know, people think that they're doing good and they're doing the right thing as you come in and destroy, you know, the old order. and you have just a few people on top, and everybody else will rent things. They won't own anything, and they'll be happy. And it's their agenda, and this is part of it, as I see it.
Okay, we'll keep going.
All right.
Knowing that health is intimately connected to our environment, we commit to healing our planet and communities. We vow to embrace our role as community members and strive to embody cultural humility. We promise to continue restoring trust in the medical system and fulfilling our responsibilities as educators and advocates. We commit to collaborating with social, political, and additional systems to advance health equity. We will learn from the scientific innovations made before us and pledge to advance and share this knowledge with peers and neighbors. We recognize the importance of being in community with and advocating for those we serve.
Okay, one thing that they also said that I wanted to add in was talking about, connection to the earth, the environment, so protecting the environment. And I don't know if they're talking about climate change or what, but once again, like on the surface, one of those things that I would be like, hey, I'm all about that too. Like, where does your food come from, and chemicals in the water and all that kind of thing. But I guess I'm skeptical that that's what they're talking about. I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm very, very skeptical. I did want to point out, because people might not recognize this white coat ceremony is graduation. This is
they said the class of 2026, so it's not
Oh,
graduation.
they're getting their white coats, or they're coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's this is a formal ceremony.
Yeah.
This is like going to your church and saying the Apostles' Creed. This is serious business to them. And
well, the students wrote it, apparently, according to the Daily Mail.
Really?
The students wrote the
I'm
ceremony.
I'm amazed.
So what would you normally say? Would you said anything? I mean, did they make you chant anything when you were in medical school?
On the way in, we didn't have a white coat ceremony. We had something similar to this on the way out, where we got our white coat or whatever, and then we put on our gown, so we get our degree. We said the Hippocratic Oath. And the Hippocratic Oath, I highlighted one line. I'll read it. Into whatsoever houses I enter, I will enter to help the sick, and I will abstain from all intentional wrongdoing and harm, especially from abusing the bodies of man or woman, bond or free. This is what we used to say, and I guarantee you that these medical students have been schooled on vaccines, and including COVID vaccine. This is all lip service. They're going to be schooled. They're not going to be trained in Native American, medicine. Smoke the peace pipe and take the whatever herb. There's just no way. They're going to be educated with Goodman and Gilman's, book on pharmaceuticals, and they're going to learn about drugs. They're going to learn about adrenergic and anti-adrenergic hormones in the body, and then the drugs that go against each of those. And if you have too much of this, you give this drug, and too little of that, you give that drug, and you do all these thousands and thousands of tests now. And if you get this test out of whack, you give this drug, and if it's that test out of whack with this test, then you give that drug. And they're not going to be taught about Native American medicine. I don't believe. Not from all I see now, pretty clearly in medicine. It's everywhere. It's not just the University of Minnesota. It's at the Journal of American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery. It's in the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery. All the same woke stuff.
I did want to just let everybody know that they can join your locals community. You are on locals, drchipabrahamsen.locals.com. Quickly, what do you focus on there? What do you chant about? What do you chant about on your locals community?
Healthy living, overcoming stress. I just finished my 5th talk on stress. Stress is not what you think it is. It's not your job. It's not the person you live with. Stress is your emotional reaction, and that emotional reaction actually is not even you. If you get all the way to stress talk 4, and then stress talk 5, it's possible to have a stress-free life. And also how to eat healthy without having to, what about this supplement? What about that supplement? That's no different from anything else. I have this, so I need this supplement, and I have this other symptom, and I need that supplement. I have a very traditional approach, which cured me, and I make my own kombucha. I do fermented sauerkraut and kefir. I know how to make them, but I buy those. I get all my food from local farms. I don't go to the grocery store except for a few things like lemons when they're out of season here in Florida. So you can learn how to source locally and how to eat economically and very healthily and not have to go to a dentist or a doctor for anything other than emergencies.
Starseed says, I hang out with a lot of shamans. I consider most of what doctors do is detrimental to health. How many millions of people did they put on statin drugs? And David FL, big pharma crushed holistic type medicines. And yeah, and so it's just hard to believe. Yeah, hard to believe that the students within, the University of Minnesota medical system are what,
they're going to change everything. Right. Yeah. The big pharma is going to back down because the University of Minnesota had their white coat ceremony. Yeah. Right.
or that they're not going to be just perpetuating it. I mean, it's like it's like a great way for the students to feel good about continuing or perpetuating evil, because it's like, it's redefining the terms so you can still use the terms and feel good about it, but you can do that while also perpetuating the opposite, because you're not aware. You're still you get to use the terms to make you feel really good about yourself.
Virtue signaling, I believe is the term.
Yeah,
but they're good comments. The a lot of real medicine has been destroyed. When I was in the hospital, I couldn't get my patient stuff that I took myself, like magnesium diglycinate, to relax muscles and help you heal after surgery. I couldn't get it for them. It's just not available. And there are a lot of things like that are cheap, easy to get for somebody in private that they will not have in hospitals. So I agree that those things that approach to medicine is being destroyed.
So somebody over on Locals, this is my Locals chat, alisonmorrow.locals.com, and I think it's, Jeff says that it seems to be having the opposite effect, eroding our trust in them because of the woke nonsense, because they do say at the end of that they're trying to continue regaining the trust. That's why, I really want to sit these people down and ask them what, I need to hear what all these terms mean, because I'm very confused. And I think that, when I hear about folks going into the medical system or talking about restoring trust, I don't know. I guess I'm just curious what they mean by that, because a lot of people, especially over the last couple of years, have really lost, not just trust in their doctors, but almost to the point where they will stay home and die versus go to the hospital because they're so concerned.
Yeah. These terms, and I wrote down 3 of them: restore trust, equity, and share this knowledge. As I read through Alex Jones's book, The Great Reset, he just quotes verbatim from Noah Harari's book, who was the biggest influencer of Klaus Schwab. And these terms are right out of Noah Harari's books. This is what we have to do. This is our plan to get what we want.
Chip, do you remember the song "They're Coming to Take Me Away"? The men in the white coats. It's where they all belong.
Yes. Sure. Great song.
Can you sing it? I don't know the song.
They're coming to take me away. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, that's a great song.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to ask you about this, because the guy that was leading the chant, the doctor, I got to go look up his name. Robert Englander, I guess his name goes by Bob. And I think he's the associate dean for the medical school. He's a, quote, according to his Twitter, he's a champion of competency-based education. I'm not really quite sure what that means. And so competency-based medical education. I don't really, do you know anything about that?
This is from the AAMC. What is that?
Good question. About us. Here we go.
Yeah. Tomorrow's doctors, tomorrow's cures. Leads the academic, not-for-profit.
Careers in AAMC store. Let's see what you can buy.
All right.
I'll have to look it up. Let's see here. Well, actually, you know what? Why don't you do this? You look it up real fast, and I'll tell people to go buy wine.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so don't forget, everybody, that hey, one great way to support my work, which is not a pharmaceutical, is going to AlisonWinePromo.com. And you get some amazing Malbecs. The trio here has one from almost 9,000 feet. I know you guys hear me talk about them a lot, but that's because they're awesome. And you can support my work. If you're also drinking wine already, then why not go to my sponsor and help support my work, keep interviews coming. AlisonWinePromo.com, 50% off the wine and 50% off shipping. It means that these really like high shelf wines come at a really great price. And like I said, it's a good way to support my work. I really like them because they're robust flavors because of the altitude. They're unique because of that. They're from very remote locations, so fewer pesticides, and also very high up. So the grape skins work very hard to protect the grapes from the sun, which makes the flavor very different than like a wine that you would get at a grocery store that's grown at, say, I don't know, 500 feet or something like that. So do that for me if you don't mind. Or if you're a coffee drinker, go to twinenginecoffee.com/Alison. You get 10% off your first order. These are organic roasts from Nicaragua. There are light roasts, there's dark roasts, and well, the one I drink most mornings is this, the Cigar No. 1. It's a dark roast. Really like it a lot. But if you're a tea drinker, you can also check out the Katura tea. It's tea from the coffee fruit. So you get the fruit from the coffee beans is dried, and they put it in a bag, and then you put some in your mason jar if you cold brew like I do. But if you hot brew, you can put it in a little, whatever those tea things are. I don't know what they're called. Dad, you probably know. The little tea thing.
Caddy. A tea caddy?
Yeah, tea caddy. And then, quick, easy. It's like a black tea. It's very good. High antioxidants, low caffeine. So twinenginecoffee.com/Alison is where it's at. All right, let's go back to this. What'd you find out?
This is the website of the American Association of Medical Colleges.
Okay.
And they basically formed a website, so almost like social media, so you can share. But if you're applying to medical school, if you're thinking about being a doctor, if you're in medical school, if you're in residency, we can help you navigate, through your stress, whatever. And I didn't see any advertisements, although here's male contraception in a post-Roe world. Maybe
Well,
that's an advertisement.
What about this? From virtual learning to the speed of getting a vaccine,
Okay, there we
academic
go.
medicine has met every challenge it's faced because as medical professionals, this is what we do. So see this final.
Okay, there it is. So, okay.
Yeah. Hey, look how fast
medicine.
you can get a vaccine now without, you can test it on 8 rats and then everybody's great.
That's amazing to me that people would actually take that thing.
Okay.
People are just totally brainwashed.
Okay. So yeah, let's see what data and reports shows. So this is understanding and addressing sexual harassment in academic medicine, diversity, equity, and inclusion, competency.
Yeah.
Economic impact.
This is funded. I guarantee you, this is funded by Big Pharma or Klaus Schwab or his gang, whatever. The code words are there. Diversity is a big one.
Yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion is the key word.
Which means affirmative action.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of journalists are going through DEI training right now, and they're learning from people who are very controversial and often debated within sort of the race discussion. But it's being taught to journalists as if like all Black people think this way, and then journalists are taught like, well, if you question this, then you're a racist and you could go to HR. So then you have to cover all these issues without raising your hand and saying, wait a second, there's this other side. Cause they're taught there isn't another side. You can't have another side. So it's fascinating to me when the people who are the disseminators of information, or in this case, disseminators of medicine, are taught that there's only one proper way to think through this stuff, and they're not. See, I wouldn't mind if you did DEI training. Like, in my opinion, I don't care if you do that, but you should also bring in the people who debate the DEI stuff. Like, I think you should know about diversity and equity and inclusion training. Like, you should know it's out there. People are getting it all over the place. But I think you should also hear from the people who are calling BS on it, and then make a decision. But there's
a name for those people. They're called whistleblowers. And they are being destroyed in our country to the point where, their careers are being destroyed. Peter McCullough and the whole gang. So that's why there aren't a lot of them. But critical thinking is gone. If you want a doctor that thinks critically about your situation, I would stay away from conventional medicine.
Okay, so I still don't understand that, other than it says that CBME is an outcomes-based approach.
Okay, outcomes-based approach is touted by hospitals. Like, we're going to show you our outcomes, and Medicare supposedly is going to pay based on outcomes, but it's not. It's never turned out to be. We have the best outcomes. It's always turned out to be we don't have the worst outcomes. Okay, the difference being we don't show the percentage of people 20 years later who are still doing fine with the total hips that we did. What we show is we have a lower infection rate. Now, how do they do that? They just deny, some people, no, we're not doing your total hip because that's going to affect our grade with Medicare. And that's what's going on. It's not the way it should be. It really should be, statistically based for the positive, the good outcomes, not the bad. And Medicare is all about, and so is the Joint Commission. They're all about what you've done wrong, and you can't get any bad marks. Not this, you get a great score because you did all these things good.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess at the end of the day, what kind of medical practice does that end up leading to? I mean,
Oh,
I guess
you can't take the high risk people anymore. You just, those are the bad outcomes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're heavy, if your BMI is over 30, you have a 10 times increased risk of infection from a total joint. So, hey, why would I want to operate on, if I'm the hospital administrator, why would I want to take in people that are, BMI over 30? It doesn't make any sense. If I want to be have good outcomes so that Medicare will, won't cut our payments.
I see. Okay, so how much then, when it comes to do you see a connection between that and what we saw in the video? Because the guy, like I said, granted, according to Daily Mail, and I don't know how many students dissented or are not there, and didn't want to participate in it. So I don't know how many of those students were like the entirety of the class or 10% or what. Again, according to the Daily Mail, they wrote it, but the dean, the associate dean who's there, he's this expert in competency-based medical education. So what would that mean if you're going to school and like the guy that's running your medical school is into competency-based medicine? How would that affect your medical education?
They're redefining medical education. They're absolutely redefining it. They're saying it's social, that it's political, and that we have to overturn traditional medicine. We have to get rid of doctors like Dr. Chip Abrahamsen because he's evidence-based. He believes that the best available evidence is evidence-based medicine, not proof. There's no such thing as proof in medicine. It's just what's the best available evidence statistically. Nobody believes in that anymore. They say that there's all wrong. They're pointing the fingers. They're angry. They hate tradition and they hate our country. They're trying to destroy it. If you go further on this video, I watched it. The guy Timcast, he compares it to a cult, and it's a striking contrast. It does look very similar.
My dad had to have 2 hip surgeries because of their shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then, this is what Jeff was saying, that you were talking about. Tim Pool covered it earlier, suggested that people avoid any doctor that went to the University of Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd be very careful about any young doctor. If they're going to push vaccines, they're going to be angry at their patients, and hate their patients who refuse to go with the party line. And that's what medicine is becoming. There's a party line, and you do it or else. You don't listen to your patient anymore. You just pull out your pamphlet and you do what your local society tells you to do for this problem. They treat test results, not diagnoses. They don't make diagnoses. They don't do physical exams anymore. They do a cursory physical exam. They kind of jiggle your shoulder around a little bit and pretend that they're doing something, but then they treat the MRI. They've already looked at the MRI before they even interview the patient. They've already decided what they're going to do. I witnessed it.
How do lemons go out of season in Florida? Someone asks, because you were talking about that earlier.
I don't know if it's too hot and humid in the summer or whatever, but like key limes are available in the fall, kind of late summer, fall, and the citrus like lemons and stuff are more like in the winter. But yeah, we don't have year-round lemons. I have a lemon tree that's not fruited yet, but my friend that gives me some lemons from his tree, it's like, I don't know, 2 months a year, and the key limes they were only, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks I got some.
Okay, going back quickly before we wrap to locals. Somebody was asking about, like, okay, so you have to decide if you're a doctor for money or to help people. What combination of both are you in actual fact? What are your must-dos and must-nots?
Oh, that's a great question. If you're a doctor for money, then you hire a lot of employees so you can do it the best ways, and you market and you spend all this money and you get a huge mega group and you get lost. And it's impersonal. It's a maze. It's not where I go and get my medicine. The alternative is to lower your overhead. The average orthopedic surgeon has something like 4.7 full-time equivalents in his office per doctor. Amazing. And when I had my own practice, I thought I was doing great because I was at 3.1. And then in Virginia, I met an orthopedic surgeon who was at 1.3. He was an engineer. He had, had a double degree, one in engineering and one in physics. And he was brilliant. And he designed his office so that things were so efficient that he just didn't need a lot of people. So if you, it's just like life. If you keep your overhead low, if you learn how to spend thriftily and not buy things you don't need, you're going to have a lot of money. It's not how much you make. Money Magazine proved that.
I crossed paths with a young new MD out of Vanderbilt. He will never have critical thinking skills. All computer programmer.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly the new MD now. Yes, and upward stage at least 42 now. Anybody probably 45 years old and younger is going to be like that. Yeah, just all computer program regurgitation, and they're taught that in medical school. I'll ask them some questions to get them to try and critically think a little bit. What are you going to do if this is the best available evidence? What are you going to tell your patient? And you can't look at your computer. Okay, I'm just giving you a scenario. You got to decide this or that. You can't hedge. What are you going to say to your patient if this is true? And they can't. They don't know. Blah, 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 blah. So they have to regurgitate what's on the computer, what's in their manual. They don't know what else to do, and so they look at their computer before they go in and see the patient. They look at the test result, or they'll go in and go, well, we're going to have to order some tests. Oh, it sounds good. So you go and you get the test, and then they look at the test result and they look at their computer and they decide what to do. And then they go into the patient and go, well, your test results showed a low bebop. And so we have to give you this new pharmaceutical drug, which has some side effects, but I haven't seen anybody really get hurt by it. So why don't you try it out? Medicine is nuts now. It's nuts. I've witnessed it.
Well, remember when we were taking the producer, our currently now executive producer, she got the promotion when the associate producer was born. But last year we had to take her to the emergency room, and they, were like, they look, I had asked them a question or told them something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were like typing in, and then the assistant was like whispering to the doctor. And I finally said, "Are you Googling the answer right now? What's happening?" And Lynn, tried to chime in to like smooth it out because they looked at me kind of like they were offended a little bit. But I mean, it was pretty obvious that I would ask a question, the guy would type on the iPad, then he would whisper the doctor, and then she would answer. And after like 3 times that, I'm like, "What are you doing?" Because I would love to save the money and just go Google the answers myself. Like, I'm here because thought you were doctors, you
Well,
know?
when I was in private practice, and we're talking, 15 years ago, whatever, even more, in my own, my own business, all by myself, I Googled things with people. They would ask me a question. I would say, I've never heard of that before. Let's Google it and find out. And then I would walk them through it. I'd say, I wouldn't trust this website, and here's why. And here's a
Mhm.
website that I would trust, and let's look at their information. And if I were you, you can get more information if you want, but I can at least help you. Which website, at least back then, which one is more reasoned thinking.
Okay, yeah. Patient has to learn to be a patient advocate for themselves. A good doctor will respect that if the patient isn't outrageous. And yeah, I mean, you do have to kind of. It's
Yeah,
a
you did
little.
that. You did that when you were delivering. You did
Yeah,
really
right.
well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I avoided an induction. Well, I mean, they couldn't. You can. I don't think they would have strapped me down and forced me anyway. But I sailed through it with, I think, respect from the doctor, because I talked, about what their own, their their science, and what other, other evidence-based websites were talking about, like with the fact that you do not have to induce somebody within 24 hours or get a baby out within 24 hours after their water breaking, which is what people did in the 50s or 60s. Now, this is the thing when I push back a little bit on the idea that an older doctor is just generally better, because I actually think probably it would have been likely that my doctor, who is much older here, if we hadn't had our excursion for hiking and my water breaks and we end up at this rural hospital in Oregon, I think my doctor in Washington also would have probably tried to induce me, because their medicine back in the 60s, or 70s, I don't want to, he's probably not that old, but coming out of that era was all about getting the baby out. You have to get the baby out now. I mean, they used to put women, I couldn't believe that. I found out recently, my neighbor told me, and then my doctor confirmed, that they used to put you under to have a baby. I mean, you wouldn't even
Yes.
be awake. That's nuts,
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and
I remember
and
when. Mm.
what'd you say?
I remember when. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, and our doctor who delivered Jack, he goes, well, it makes me wonder, what am I doing now that 50 years from now they're going to look back on and say,
Sure.
that was nuts. At least
Yeah.
he has that, like, light bulb on in his
Yeah.
head,
Yeah.
like,
You really helped him to wake up a little bit. Yeah, it was good.
yeah, 'cause at the end he said, "It's never a good idea to practice medicine out of fear." And you know what? But that just goes
Yes,
to
he
show
got it.
that they're often that he's aware that they're taught,
Yes.
or at least that there's a lot of pressure to
Yes.
be the opposite way, to
Oh, that
be.
brings up a great story. So I said to this one resident one time, I said, let's say that the best available evidence shows that you should cement a total hip stem for somebody that has a total hip over age whatever 50. And the first 5 that you do on patients that are 51 years old, they all fall apart and they break, and it's a disaster, and they get infected. All in 5 of them. You have a horrible experience. What are you going to do with your 6th one? Now, if they're critical thinkers, they'll say, well, I'm going to follow evidence-based medicine. I'm going to do the same thing on the 6th guy. I'm not going to get afraid and use anecdotal evidence. I'm not going to go by my experience, because that never trumps. That's never the right thing to do. But this anecdotal evidence, which is just based on fear, the last time this happened, I don't want it to happen again, is pervasive in medicine, and it has been for a long time.
Anything else you want to say before we go? I can
Oh,
hear dissent in the control room. The force
okay. Time
shifted,
to
so
wrap it up.
gonna wrap.
Um, I just I see this, and I believe clearly, as a spiritual battle between good and evil. And I really believe that they want people to chant equity and diversity and all this stuff, and become part of this cult. So they won't see clearly, and so that they will end up being destroyed, not just spiritually, but the people that are designing the future of our country and the world have it planned out so that the Obamas and the people on Martha's Vineyard that have the $8 million mansions are going to be running our world, and they're going to destroy. They know how. They're going to destroy the economy of the middle class and the small business, and in effect destroy our country. And it's my hope that people will wake up and that they'll start to think for themselves, not go along with this quote unquote woke agenda, unless, or think clearly, make your own decisions, become an individual. Don't march to the same beat as all these people that are marching in line, and be your own person. Life is more fun that way, to be yourself. And I think that's the best way to be safe from this upcoming great reset.
Have you read the book Physician or The Physician by Noah Gordon?
No, sounds interesting.
Okay. And then when you're talking about the experience, Bill's like, on the sixth one, you say, Bob, it's your turn. Remember
that? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you got 5 in a row, there's something wrong.
Yeah. It's funny that so Captain Q, go to Mexico for cancer treatment. It's funny. I did this years ago. I've talked about this story with the naturopathic physician who was working with cancer patients. The Department of Health, sent us this press release saying he was experimenting on them. We just ran with it. That was not really the case. I talked to patients who, they're 10 years post multiple myeloma, stage 4 melanoma, lung cancer, that were alive and healthy, and all their treatments were thrown out because the department, they didn't have the choice to keep them. The Department of Health that came after this guy, and so that was it. Anyway, now he practices in Mexico. I've always said that well, he's not, I guess, yeah, he sort of is, but that's where he left the United States and was like, I'm out of here, and now he lives in Mexico. But it's just interesting to think about that, because I realized through that story that these patients, the first time I had met people who were, they had found a doctor, that they were alive, and like they wanted to have him as their doctor, and they wanted to seek his treatment, and they'd sign forms saying, I know that this is not FDA approved, whatever. I still want, I feel like it's helping me. And the Department of Health just said, screw you. We're throwing it out. You cannot have it. And people died.
Big pharma. Yeah, it's a threat to big pharma. Yeah, they got it destroyed.
Yeah, you want to know? This something that's really crazy. That full circle. I talked about this on a live stream before, but one of our new friends, who our family, their family moved from Seattle to where we are now, and they've become very good friends of ours. I happened to talk to her about that story. About, this is the wife. She's my age. And I told her the story about this doctor, that I had covered in the Seattle area. And she said, oh yeah, my friend was seeing him for her cancer. She was like in her early 30s with multiple myeloma. And she had finally gone to him because no one, basically the people that went to him, the Seattle Cancer Care or whatever, they couldn't help them. They were at the end of their road, and they would go to see him. And she said, she was one of the people whose treatments was thrown out in all of that. And I'll tell you what, it's a sinking feeling when you're the reporter who, you've come full circle because you just said what the Department of Health said. You were part of that. Like, I remember that. And then you become friends with somebody years later whose best friend was a casualty of that whole situation. And you're like, wow, because I feel implicated in it. That was before I had woken up. I have to face myself and say, I just reported this propaganda. And now I'm very good friends with somebody whose best friend was caught up in all of that and ended up dying. And, it has real consequences. So I think that's why, it's worth continuing to talk about it, because, it's not just like a funny video of medical students chanting, or, the stuff that people rage about in their YouTube channels. It's got, they're real people who, especially in like the last couple of years too, we've seen stories of people affected by, the shot that will remain nameless, because they were pushed for job mandates, or you can't go to your kids' play or whatever. And there are people who have died because of the propaganda and the silencing of information, which is why we keep talking about it. So,
well,
thank you guys for watching.
You make one point that I want to highlight. Let me think of it. And that is that everyone is seduced under this dark cloud. Everybody, including me. I went along with the industry for years. For, I would say, about 10 years. I went along with the industry. And that's when I said, I got to get out of this. Like, I got to have my own practice. I can't go along with you know what they're doing, treating everybody the same as a number and trying to make a lot of money. But I did it for 10 years, and we all did. You know, we all have to wake up. There's nobody that sees clearly from the time they're born to the time they die, except maybe Jesus.
Well, I think it's a good point to end on, because it's really important. Once, I think, if you really truly are waking up to this, you are also aware of how easily you can be deceived.
Yes.
Because the
Great
most
point.
easily deceived people are the ones who think they can't be. And
Yes.
so yeah, so if you're hearing from somebody talking and they're always self-righteous, and they think that they have no capacity for being manipulated or brainwashed, where they never get anything wrong, they could not possibly have bias or see something differently, or they tell you not to question them because they've got God's truth handed down, I think that's somebody to be very skeptical of, because they don't really know their own capacity for self-deception. And I think those can be the most, I think, dangerous people ideologically.
Yes. The difference between God and a surgeon. God knows he's not a surgeon.
Yeah, right. Okay. Good way to end. All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget, you can go to AlisonMorrow.locals.com, join my editorial board. We have editorial board meetings on Saturdays. You can go to DrShipAbrahamsen.locals.com and sign up and become part of his community. And we are going to start a show together for once a week health stuff. So that's going to be on Locals only. Say that again.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. We'll see how it goes on Locals, and then we'll probably expand it to the other sites. But Locals will be where we'll take topic ideas ahead of time. So if you want to hear about preservatives, like the first video we're going to do is about a preservative in the vitamin D supplement that they gave us at the hospital for our baby, and some of the ridiculous stuff they tell you to do with a newborn, but stuff like that. So go to Locals and join us, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again.
Great. Thanks, Alison.